With degrees in criminal justice and ethics, over 30 years of investigative experience, a recognized expert in investigation procedures, and an expert in criminal and social behaviors, I am Rick Decker, and this is A Shadow of Truth. Greetings from sunny Charleston, South Carolina. Now, over the last few weeks, we've been mainly spotlighting serial killers here in the United States, and I don't want to forget my European listeners. I don't want you to think that I'm so biased that I fail to recognize that serial killers are abroad and not just here in the United States. So with that, today we are talking about the Blood Countess, Elizabeth Bathory, a Hungarian noblewoman. Before we get too far gone into the show, I want to thank you for listening. You can reach out to the show at a shadow of truth podcast at gmail.com. Also, please don't forget to like and share the show on your selected platform. So let's get back into what we were talking about. We've discussed women killers before, but not really female serial killers. And as we learned when we talked about in the show about why women kill, that women usually they don't act alone, and they usually kill out of some type of feeling of taking care of somebody, love. Rarely it's because of money, but it's usually because, or abuse, that they're trying to protect themselves. But particularly when it is that they're killing kids, it's because the kid is ill, or they're trying to justify trying to figure out a way to protect the child. Some women have killed because they didn't want the child to go into foster home situations. Other women have killed because the child was sick and they didn't think it was ever going to be able to heal and live a normal life. The reasons are unfathomable, and they're multiple. Now, true to that assessment, Elizabeth supposedly did not act alone. She killed with the assistance of 4 of her servants. Now, when all this came out, her servants were swiftly charged, investigated, and put to death. It wasn't that swift for Elizabeth, and we're going to find out why later on in the show. Elizabeth was born of noble blood. Her father was Baron George VI Barony Bathory, the brother of Voivode of Transylvania, and please forgive me for the mispronunciation of these names. Her family line expanded to the once king of Poland, the Grand Duke of Lithuania, and the Prince of Transylvania. In modern terms, this woman was well connected as anybody could get for the time. Elizabeth, like many other royalty people, spent a lot of time on the family estate alone. She didn't have any other siblings that I'm aware of, and she, like any other child, had things that would come up. She had developed seizures, and it was presumed now that it was epilepsy, but back in the Dark Ages, it may have been viewed like, or thought that she was possessed by demons or even a witch. She was betrothed at 15, and her soon-to-be husband was 19. Now, prior to them being married, Elizabeth used to take jaunts, I guess one would say, off the estate onto other estates. And for lack of a better term, she was out sowing her oats at a young age. And with a man of lower means, no less, meaning that she probably went out off the estate and romped around with the peasants. Now, her future husband found out about this and had the man castrated and then fed him to his dogs, where those dogs were commonly used in combat. He was a soldier, and they tore that poor man to shreds. Now, the child that Elizabeth bore was simply cast away somewhere. There's no real mention of it in the research. It just said it was hidden from her. So now she's 16, 17 years old. She has a reputation that is shadowed by impropriety, plus the psychological impact of having a child ripped out of her life that she gave birth to, and the man that fathered that child killed, just torn to shreds. The psychological impact of that had to be devastating. I mean, nobody would be able to forget something so heinous and horrible to have been done, even if it wasn't done in front of you and you were just told that's what happened to that individual. The guilt must have been overriding for her. I'm sure there was a lot of resentment and hatred towards her husband after that. And in those days, it really didn't matter. You were told you were going to marry somebody, you ended up having to marry them. So from time to time, Elizabeth did not stop taking lovers from various estates. Now, her and her husband had 4 children. And not long after having the 4 children, her husband had developed a pain in his legs, is what it is described as in the research. And, I can only ponder there's a number of reasons medically why that would happen. Back in those days, horse riders and people that weren't very mobile had a tendency of developing deep vein thrombosis. But, like I said, I'm not a medical doctor, old paramedic, but don't really know for sure. But that's just my undereducated guess that he died from some type of blood clot at an early age, because they said the pain in his legs was just unimaginable and he could hardly take it. Now, not long after her husband's death, it was going around in rumors, I guess, that she had been killing people all along. Now, I want everybody to remember that she was subjected to extreme circumstances of her childhood and isolation. She was noble. She wasn't allowed to go anywhere. And maybe if she did kill people, it was in retaliation. But I'm not so sure. See, when her husband died, that would have left her with a sizable estate and money. And rumors started peering its ugly head, I guess, not long, like I said, after he died, but not only of the murders, but of her impropriety with peasants and sexual provocations were becoming publicly known. Over the years, Elizabeth lived her life and did what she was going to do. I mean, it was even told that she would go into the towns off the estate and find young girls that needed to be coached or taught how to be proper servants, meaning that she would probably teach them etiquette. And the rumors were that she was killing some of these young girls. Now, typically, female killers don't always kill women. They typically kill men. And if women are killed, it's usually out of anger and preservation, not because they're picking them as a target for some unknown reason. Evidence started, coming up, and eventually, over the years, there was a discovery of physical evidence, what turned out to be some mutilated bodies and supposedly some victims that she didn't quite finish off and spoke. And that's what ultimately led to her arrest. Now, supposedly, these victims were young girls between the ages of 10 and 14. They were either servants in the castle or had come to the castle from the peasant lands to see her. And supposedly, she had a temper that would make the devil himself run away. And the further you dig into this on her, you see that, it's a possibility that she wasn't the devil or the monster that at the time they were trying to make her out to be. In fact, some of the stories are just so unbelievable. I mean, the rumors and the so-called crimes outnumbered any act or criminal behavior. They say that she had killed between 3 to 600 people. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a tough time, no matter in what society it is, to fathom that somebody could kill that many people and it not surface pretty quick. I mean, I get that she's angry and that she probably, because of the epilepsy, had impaired cognitive ability, but not even the best masterminds that we are privy to today even have killed that many people. I mean, my God, people, that is equivalent to a battlefield type scenario where you are blow to blow with hundreds of people, and not one person. I mean, three or four, 600 people at one time. That's a mass murder, not really a serial, but mass. But how in the hell did she accumulate that many victims when she was royalty and everybody around was royalty except for some peasants? I mean, people usually are able to pick stuff up and tell the story when somebody comes up missing and it's to that magnitude. And the further I get into my research, the more obvious it is that profiling somebody like her is going to be quite the challenge. But what the hell, we're going to do it anyway. Um, the, the key factor here is that I want you to remember the isolation and the devastation that she had experienced. Okay. And also, the other key factor is that these people that were accused of helping her were also people that told on her and said that she had done tortured people, she had done executions, she had mutilated. So these women were convicted rather quickly and tortured until they gave up the information, like telling them where more bodies were, giving them more gruesome details and information, and then they executed them. Over the decades, Elizabeth has been compared to Dracula, um, Vlad the Impaler. She was called the Countess of Blood. The list just went on. I mean, every time you turn around, there are stories about her executing, abducting, torturing, and killing someone. The only thing that she wasn't guilty of was cannibalism. The evidence was all over the place. Some people said she killed in a ritualistic method. Other people said that she kidnapped and that she just took people out and killed them and then buried them. So, as one could have imagined, the evidence wasn't really clear back then. Now, granted, we didn't have the type of societal structure that we have today, back in the Dark Ages, back in you know, that time. And people lived farther apart, and mines and folklore were rampant. I mean, we had people talking about werewolves and all kinds of stuff back then, witchcraft and the full moons, and people lived their lives a whole different way than what they live them today. And we have to remember that she had emotional trauma. You know, she had developed epilepsy. She was under the stress of being subjected to a prison type lifestyle even prior to anybody finding out that she had allegedly killed somebody. She had no life of her own. She had no control. And the only control that she found was to sneak out and go take lovers off the estate. Now, I would suspect that the reason why she took lovers in the first dang place was because, like I said, she felt she had no control over her life. And these are obvious self destructive behaviors, which are normal with people, women particularly, who experience sexual abuse, domestic abuse at particularly a young age. Their self esteem is low, and they take the only control that they can have, which is over their bodies, and they do what they want to do because they have men in their life telling them, no, you can't do this. They were treated back then as property, as chattel, in fact. And in fact, if you want to get really down to it, even here in the United States, back in the early um, 19th century, women could not own property, and prior to their getting the right to vote, because they were considered property. They were considered chattel. So if you can imagine, that's what it was like here in the United States back in the 19th century. Well, longer back than that over in Europe, which is where we all originate from anyway, it was the same way. Women had no say so. Now, if she did kill these people, 300 to 600 victims, I mean, the reality is it was most likely a result of rage and the lack of control. Any one person, nobody can take being told for the rest, for the most of the rest of their life, what to do, when to do it, not to do it. I mean, people in prisons retaliate because human beings are not meant to be caged, and we are not meant to be controlled. We are meant to have a certain anonymity for ourselves, which she didn't have. Low self esteem and loneliness are terrible things to have to be experienced by anyone, particularly somebody that has not been sheltered but been chastised and further pushed down away from society, like Elizabeth was. If Elizabeth did kill these people, I would classify her as an organized killer. She was meticulous in everything that she did. Her victims certainly met specific characteristics, and she would have been a power control orientated type killer. But I'm telling you, organized killers usually do it out of lust. And my honest opinion here is I don't think she did it. Now, historians say, well, some of the stories work out and some of them don't. So she probably did some of the things. I call bullcrap. And I'm going to tell you why. Um, she had a lot of male figures in her life. You got to remember, she was connected to barons and kings of other countries. And when her husband died, they would have wanted her wealth to expand their power, to expand their financial gain. Now, typically women don't kill for financial gain, particularly when they have all the finances in the first place. And th- my main question is why did Elizabeth kill women? You know, she helped train some of these women. Women serial killers typically kill men. So why focus on women? Now, the other thing that's really important here to remember is that she never stood trial. She never went to court. She was adjudicated by her cousin and basically shut up in her castle, boarded up so that she couldn't be seen, so that she would wither away. Now, things like this happen in our society every day. People, when somebody wants what you have and you're not willing to give it to them, like the money, the power, the land, other people, men particularly, will take it. And it happens today in business. I mean, if somebody won't sell, corporations take over the company. It's called hostile takeover. I think her family wanted the wealth. They wanted to own it and they needed it. And if they killed her, it would be known. So they did the next best thing. They probably adjudicated her as a murderess, and people bought into it. They told the story. People stuck with the story, and she withered away and died. This type of cover up is horrific in itself, but human behavior, human psychology, we are motivated by lust, greed, desire, need. So those are some good motives for somebody way back when and even today to get rid of somebody that's in the way, somebody that is of poor reputation, so that you can just walk away with what they have. The thing we need to remember is that the longer a cover up or story goes, the more grandiose it is, the more gullible we are because the story grows. We exaggerate what we don't understand, and we try to dehumanize those who offend us or stand in our way of getting what we want. Now, we do this all the time. When Brian Laundrie was on the news, he did a terrible thing, but the news media, Dog the Bounty Hunter, and others tried to make him out to be a serial killer without a shred of evidence. Now, this is harder today in our society, but back then it would have been a piece of cake to make her be the killer that they wanted her to be. After a long time, I mean, even after her death, they kept her story alive and it just grew and grew. And in fact, they said she used to drink blood and she would bite people. I mean, she is thought to have been the motivator for Bram Stoker's Dracula book. Stories grow when every time we tell a story, we swoon after it. It takes over our lives. It consumes us. We believe what we say and we justify what we're saying because we say, well, so and so said. We do that with things that we can't understand, things that hurt us. Hell, we do it all the time with serial killers, ex-spouses. I mean, if you've ever been divorced, think about how often the story of how bad you were to your spouse grows over the decades. We all do it to one another just to justify our actions or the rejection that we experience in our lives. I am not saying that she's innocent, and I'm not saying that she's guilty either, but I am saying is that one must be prudent to consider all options before we finalize an opinion. And I really don't care when we live or what era we come from. Human behavior is always going to be human behavior, no matter if you lived 2 million years ago or just 5 days ago. And profiling is not an exact science, but what is exact that allows profilers to work is that people are unpredictable, but we are also creatures of habit. We follow patterns. Think about this. You live a world away from me and I from you. But for the first 187 seconds of the start of your day, you and I are precisely or mostly alike. We may not do the exact same things, have the exact same beverage, but we all get up out of bed. We all go to the bathroom. We all get something to drink, and we all start thinking and processing the day. Those are unequivocally unarguable. You cannot say that that's not true, because no matter when you may wake up at 3 in the morning, you may wake up at 3 in the afternoon. It doesn't really matter when you start your day. We're so biologically the same that we go through the same issues. Truth be told, if you're going to attack your enemies, do it in the morning, right when they're first getting up. That's why soldiers sleep in shifts, so that they don't get killed, because that type of human behavior is predictable. What sets us apart are the things we experience and our individualism, our personalities. Biologically, we're all the same. But as we go through life, we understand that we are more alike than we are unalike, no matter what the color of your skin or the religion you practice. We all want the same things out of life. Listen, I want to thank you for listening. I enjoy doing the show, and I hope you enjoy the show as well. Please like and share on your selected platform. Each of our serial killers have their own cup, t-shirt, and hoodie, along with other merchandise at our store links, which are available on our website. And until next time, please, let's take care of one another. I often say when I leave this world, I want to do it as a wide brushstroke and not as a number 2 pencil. We have to enrich the lives of others throughout our life. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy the show. Carpe diem.